What's up everyone, this is Denny and Ryder, and like I said in the intro, this isn't a direct guide that you could follow. I'm just going to be going over what I used in this build and the prices that I paid for each part, but there will be some helpful information for someone who wants to do something similar. If you're building a computer for under $500, I recommend buying some parts used, especially the graphics card, because online prices aren't that great, and you could find a lot better deals and pay a lot less. So in this build, I went with the Ryzen 3 1200 quad-core processor. I paid $35 for that. For the graphics card, I went for a 1060 3GB edition. I paid $65 for that. For the motherboard, I went for an A320M motherboard, which I picked up from Micro Center. But recently, I've actually found a better price on Amazon, so I'll put that there instead. You can actually buy that for $41. And for the RAM, I managed to find someone selling DDR4 3000 speed Corsair RGB RAM, which was a nice little surprise to have it actually be that speed and be RGB. He actually listed it as 2133, but I was just going to go for it anyway since it was $40, and even if it was 2133, I could probably try to overclock it a little bit. Turns out I didn't have to. It was actually DDR3 3000, and he just must have messed something up there when he listed it, I'm not sure. And for the case, I went for a Rosewell FBM 400. But I actually bought that one online as well. I bought it off Newegg, and at the time it was $20 off, so that gave me a case and power supply combo for $43, which was pretty good, actually. It's hard to get a cheap power supply online without getting a really crappy one. Don't buy Appvia. I've heard so many bad things about Appvia. I mean, if someone wants to try it, go ahead, but I don't want to take that risk. I managed to find a 500GB M.2 WD Blue SSD, so that was for $40. For 500GB, $40. Even for a SATA drive, that's amazing. So everything on this build I got incredibly lucky with, and I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to replicate something like this. This is, like I said, it's very chance-based, so yeah. So I'm just going to do some quick tips to help you guys out. If you have any additional questions, just go ahead and ask me in the comments section. I'll probably be able to reply pretty much whenever. So graphics cards. If you're going for a build around the same price as mine, maybe a little bit more, I would recommend around the $100 mark. You can get an RX 570, RX 580, 1060, or a 970. And those are all around the same performance. The difference between a 4GB and an 8GB RX 570 or RX 580, the difference is so minimal it's not worth it. However, there is a difference between a 3GB 1060 and a 6GB 1060. So if you see a 6GB 1060 priced maybe like $20 or $30 more, it might be worth it over the 3GB edition. It's up to you whether you want to pay the extra amount, because it's whatever. But for prices in general, for an RX 580, I would pay, personally, in my area, I would pay $100 for that. It might be different in other areas. People might try to overprice them a lot. They don't know what their stuff is worth, or they paid for a more expensive brand, and in the long run, paying for a more expensive brand isn't really all that worth it when it comes to graphics cards, especially when you're trying to resell them, because an RX 580 is an RX 580. The difference between an RX 580, just regular, I don't know what brand would be, like a Sapphire, I don't know, versus an ROG Strix RX 580, the difference is so minimal, it's not worth the extra $50 that person paid. Other things, I can't really think of too much else to say. You're going to have a lot better luck going Ryzen when it comes to budget builds, because a lot of the time they include a better cooler. Well, they include a cooler, that's one thing. And if you can't find a used motherboard, oftentimes buying a new Ryzen motherboard isn't actually that bad. You can buy a new Ryzen motherboard for very cheap prices, as I've shown you before. my definition of new might be different from other people's. If I can buy it online from somewhere like Amazon, where I can return it if there's ever a problem without having to pay for anything, I would consider that new, because I don't have to worry about anything. Even though it might not technically be new, it's like refurbished or whatever. Because I can return it to Amazon whenever I need to, well, within that time window, I'm not worried about it, you know? Other things. RAM, if you can only get your hands on 2666, that's not that bad as you think. A lot of people, you know, with Ryzen, they try to make you think that 3000 or 3200 or even 3600 is necessary, and the difference is so minimal, it's just not worth the extra $10 or even $20 sometimes that the price difference is. And also, RAM overclocking isn't as hard as you think it is. If you have something like 2666, putting it to 3000 isn't that difficult. And but one thing you also have to look out for is the timings. I don't know too much about all this stuff, but basically the timings are kind of an indicator of your overclocking room. Like if you have CL19 2666, that probably doesn't have that much room to overclock. It depends on what the voltage is, you know, there's all sorts of variables that I'm not fully knowledgeable about. Like I said, I've only been doing this for a few months. Some people have been doing this for years, so I can't answer everything in the video, but yeah, it's whatever. Still thinking of things to say. Storage, always get an SSD. Seriously, don't, like, it's never worth just getting a hard drive. Hard drives are like terrible, and buying used hard drives, I've never bought a used hard drive, but I can assume that they're probably not good. Hard drives have a limited life compared to SSDs, or so I've been told. You know, if you want to, you know, research all any of this stuff for yourself, like, go ahead and do that, because I'm not the most knowledgeable person. I've just been selling computers for a few months. Like, you know, yeah, it's whatever. So if you have any questions, just ask me in the comment section or whatever. Yeah, bye.